2 years ago, Türkiye suffered its greatest natural disaster in nearly a century, leaving scars that will last generations. But since that tragic day, the country has been on an unrelentless mission to rebuild. I'm Zeynep Gökçe. Join me on this special edition of Strait Talk from Hatay, one of the hardest hit regions from the February 6th quakes. We'll talk to the leaders who are rebuilding the region and the plans to make it more ready for any future disasters.
Deprem oluyor. Çok büyük deprem oluyor.
On February 6, 2023, southern Turkey was struck by twin earthquakes, measuring 7.7 and 7.6 in magnitude. The disaster devastated 11 provinces, reducing entire cities to rubble and triggering an unprecedented humanitarian crisis.
Nobody can understand before come here. They just see from the televisions, they just hear. It's different experiences to come here.
Turkey lies on the seismically active Anatolian plate, a fragile strip of land that has been ravaged by earthquakes for millennia. The February 6th quakes were the strongest to hit the country in nearly a century. Its epicenter around Kahramanmaraş was just 7 kilometers beneath the Earth's surface. The quake's sheer devastation led to an outpouring of international support. Local and international rescue teams mobilized swiftly, working around the clock to save survivors. Turkey, which for decades had helped quake-ravaged nations, was receiving that goodwill in return.
Every time we have interacted with the Turkish people, they have been kind and welcoming, and we are humbled by their resilience after this disaster.
One of the hardest hit areas was in Turkey's deep south. I'm here in Antakya, the largest city in Hatay. This area, which has been dubbed the center of civilizations, was hit hard by the twin earthquakes. Hatay's ancient past and its modern buildings both suffered greatly on that day. But now the city is getting back on its feet, where entire new neighborhoods are springing up. Just 160 kilometers from the epicenter in Kahramanmaraş, Hatay saw the collapse of over 13,000 buildings, making it the most severely affected region in Turkey. Among the significant losses was the 14th century Habibi Necar Mosque, one of the oldest mosques in Anatolia, and a 700-year-old Greek Orthodox church in Altınözü. With over 22,000 lives lost, the region faced unimaginable devastation. But today, a new Hatay is rising. Mustafa Masatli is the governor of Hatay and is overseeing the region's entire reconstruction, from critical infrastructure to cultural sites. He said there's a joint effort to reinvigorate the city in every possible way, as he plans to deliver tens of thousands of more houses by the end of 2025. I asked the governor about what stage the overall construction work is currently at.
Mr. Governor, I think it's fair to say Hatay was one of the most hard-hit cities in the February earthquakes, and you had a very difficult task. First of all, I want to go into the housing projects. What stage are they at? How many units have you made? And what kind of difficulties did you face along the way?
Şimdi öncelikli olarak coğrafyamız
Our region has faced one of the biggest disasters in history. We have lost a great deal of lives and property as well as severe damage to our buildings. Almost 1/3 of our buildings got damaged and the biggest right ownership of Republic emerged, which is 177,591. Since February 6, we have been trying to rebuild, renovate and revitalize the city once again with the support of our president, public and private institutions, as well as civil society. These efforts include but not limited to catering, sheltering, health, education, trade, tourism, infrastructure and cultural sites. As of now, we delivered 46,140 houses to their owners, and until the end of this year, as our president mentioned, this number will reach 190,000. Both houses and workplaces will be delivered to the owners. Our work is relentless. This city has become one of the biggest construction sites in the world. We have learned a great deal from this incident. If those buildings that collapsed were constructed in a stronger and safer way according to the regulations, damage wouldn't have been like this. Those people would not have lost their lives. Now, all of our buildings are being built according to the regulations. Bases reaching to 25 meters below ground, away from the fault lines and liquefied soil, prioritizing horizontal living spaces to withstand 9.0 in Richter scale. If our citizens would like to build their own houses instead, they can get a line of credit to do so under our plan.
140 konutu hak sahiplerine teslim etmiş olduk.
Can you also walk us through the overall recovery progress, especially when it comes to critical infrastructure, roads, hospitals, communication lines? Has everything been fully rebuilt? Has life gone back to normal in Hatay in that way?
Şimdi Hatay'da şu an itibariyle hayat
Life in Hatay is going normally as of now, but we must take into account that there were 1,604 schools and 1/3 of them are lost now. If education and trade can't be sustained, no one can expect a normal life in a city. We are trying to ensure that people can have a normal life in here. So far, we built and opened 129 schools. When all projects finished, we will have 2,000 more classrooms than before the earthquake. Hospitals were a significant problem too. We had 3 ongoing hospital constructions when the quake hit, and those we finished first. Then we restored all the local clinics and made them operational as fast as possible. We are also building other facilities all around Hatay province as we speak. February 6 earthquakes are known in the literature as image-changing earthquake. That's why it affected the infrastructure heavily as well. All the responsible public institutions are working to meet their deadlines to provide a good life to their citizens.
Destek sayımız inşallah bu işlerimiz tamamlandığında 16.700'e çıkacak.
Let's also talk about the economic activity in Hatay. How are you attracting investors here? What kind of investments are being made? And also, how are you supporting local businesses who have been affected by the earthquake so far?
Afet sadece normal hayatımızın dışında
To reduce the effect of the earthquake in the region, their taxes are postponed under the state of emergency. Small and medium businesses are given 5.2 billion Turkish liras in total to recover, as well as unemployment pay provided for the employees. 2 business districts were built for local, gastronomic and cultural businesses that represent Hatay's authenticity. We designed and distributed financial aid for women-led businesses all around the region.
ve orta boy işletmeleri destekleyen kurumumuz
Hatay is a very rich city, and apart from the modern part of the city, the historic sites were also hugely impacted by the earthquake. I want to talk about the restoration projects, the ones completed and the ongoing restoration projects, please.
Hatay ilimiz tarihi kökleri
Hatay region has history going back to 100,000 BCE. Therefore, many civilizations left their marks here, both culturally and archaeologically. The place you see behind me is an important one. After the earthquake, a team was brought together to identify, collect, store, and renovate 269 historic sites. Also, there are a number of museums and libraries are being restored at the moment. In addition to those, our parliament building from Hatay's independent times, where we stand right now, is still being reconstructed. It is a landmark for the city and unfortunately was lost to the earthquake. We carefully collected all of its remainings and now it is being built as close to as it was, but at the same time stronger and safer. We're planning on finishing it before 23rd July, Hatay's Independence Day.
ve devamında bu bölgemizin öncelikli olarak koruma amaçlı imar planı yapıldı.
In 2024, over $30 billion was earmarked to rebuild earthquake-hit areas across southern Turkey, and that figure could triple in the coming years. As life slowly returns to normal, TOKI, the country's government-backed housing agency, is working to ensure quake-proof homes are delivered on time. Mustafa Arslan is a construction engineer at TOKI and is in charge of dozens of projects across Antakya, overseeing everything from logistics, materials to manpower. Gülderen, just 15 kilometers from the city center, is a brand new neighborhood that's already housing thousands of families. I asked Arslan what kind of measures were undertaken to ensure these structures were quake resistant.
Öncelikli olarak betonarme işleminde
First of all, every single piece used in this construction was tested. That's how these homes are built, with reinforced concrete. Everything you can see here, from the walls to the floors, were inspected and improved by experts. If there was anything not suitable to our standards, they were remade. More importantly, these homes were built very, very quickly. We finished building these homes in this area within just a year.
bir denetim üzerinden geçerek yapıldı.
The Kandemirs are only one of the families that have moved in. 2 years on from the disaster, they're trying to leave behind the traumatic experience as they've opened a new chapter in their lives in Gülderen.
Biz taşınalı 5 ay oldu.
It has been 5 months since we moved in here. I'm glad to be at my home. We went through really hard times. For about a year, we stayed at dorm rooms. Then in Antakya, we stayed in a container house for about a year. We have so many losses. We lost 16 members from our family. I don't know what to say. It hurts so much, but there's nothing to do. Against all the hard times, I'm glad right now to be here today. We are thankful to our state, our nation, for rebuilding our homes.
Yani ne diyelim, içimiz acıyor.
The overall goal is to make this community self-sufficient, giving homeowners everything they need. I asked Arslan why TOKI specifically chose this spot to build houses and the joint efforts by multiple institutions to turn this space into a city within a city.
Öncelikli olarak bu lokasyonu seçmemizin sebebi zemin yapısını.
The reason this location was chosen is that the ground here is safe and it is accessible from all locations. Also, its distance from the center reduces the traffic significantly in case of an earthquake.
Olması için seçilmiş.
From our calculations, we thought this was the best place to build the apartments. As you may know, kids here went through a very hard time because of the earthquakes. That's why we wanted to make this playground as big as possible, so that they can forget about those times. In total, 2,681 homes were built here in this neighborhood. Their social needs like mosques, markets, and schools are still under construction.
You mentioned the completed projects. Can you talk about the projects that are still underway and are there any future plans?
Gelecek için şöyle bahsedeyim. Şu an
We will continue to build as many homes as people need. Our plan right now is to finish all the ongoing projects by the end of this year. We want people to be able to go back to a normal life in the safest way. As you know, Antakya was the hardest hit in Hatay province, and construction efforts are underway. I hope everybody has their homes by the end of 2025.
konutları inşa etmeye devam ediyoruz.
The February 6th quakes also left a devastating trail of destruction in neighboring Syria. Hatay, which lies on the border, was hosting over 400,000 Syrian refugees when the quake struck. After enduring years of conflict and displacement, many are considering returning home. The collapse of the Assad regime back in December marked a turning point for them. With thousands opting to return, the next challenge is rebuilding their lives and communities. But there are still many challenges ahead.
Actually, the earthquake had devastating effects on both the local communities and refugees, especially in Hatay, a region that hosts a significant number of displaced persons. For refugees, the quake worsened an already fragile situation, and many refugees lost their home, their employment, and also support networking, which makes them more vulnerable. And many refugees also facing with difficulties access to basic needs, including food, clean water, and healthcare services during the earthquake became even more restricted in the aftermath. And also, in addition, the trauma from the earthquake compounded their difficult living conditions. And also when we providing the humanitarian aid, the biggest challenge were logistical and also structural. Hatay's infrastructure was severely damaged, and making it difficult to access to remote areas where the refugees mostly living there. The extensive damage to roads and community networks temporarily affected the ability to reach the certain areas, particularly for informal settlements and also remote neighborhoods. Also, when we consider the scale of the disaster, it stretched the capacity of the aid organizations, making it difficult to meet the needs of everyone in a timely manner. For vulnerable groups like women and children, also there were some additional measures that should be taken account, and you have to consider that additional measures to protect and to ensure the safety, the privacy, and also access to the essential services.
Yes. So what factors influence refugees to stay in Turkey or to return home, and how has your organization been supporting them along the way?
Actually, after the earthquake, yes, the number of the Syrians is decreased because they moved to another cities. However, as you know, nowadays, after the December 8th, they are returned to Syria as well, but the number is really, it is very limited. Refugees' decision to stay or to return to Syria are influenced by various factors, including safety, stability, and access to essential services. And also the lack of sufficient infrastructure in Syria also play an important role when they decide to return or to stay. And also in Syria, many areas still face severe shortages in medical care, education, clean water, electricity, and additionally, the economic instability, lack of employment opportunities, and also create the further uncertainty to make decision to return.
Supporting refugees in a post-quake, post-Assad era presents major challenges for the region. But securing a future for Hatay's next generation remains a top priority. Nearly 500,000 students had their education disrupted. Teachers from other provinces stepped in, holding classes in makeshift schools across the quake-hit area. Now, 2 years on, efforts to rebuild Hatay's education system are in full swing. I spoke with the head of Hatay Province Education Ministry, Harun Tuysuz, about how schools were being built to withstand the next tremor. Schools suffered great damage during the February earthquakes, with many being destroyed, and you took on a huge responsibility when it comes to making sure the education continues. What is the latest with the educational institutions? Have they been fully rebuilt, and what kind of challenges did you face during this period?
6 Temmuz 2023 itibariyle ben burada.
I took over the position in July 2023, a few months after the earthquake. First, we decided to reinforce the standing buildings. We saw that 1/3 of the schools were either demolished or heavily damaged, so we prioritized opening the remaining schools as fast as possible to enable the students and their families to return to the province. After schools opened on the 11th of September, 100,000 students returned. Overall, we have 400,000 students in Hatay. By September this year, we will have 2,000 more classrooms than we had before the earthquake.
Tekrar geriye döndürelim.
How many students are attending in-person classes? Also, how many students are attending temporary facilities for their educations? Also, I wonder if online classes are still a thing at this time.
Biz özellikle geçen yıl
The reason we opened the schools on the 11th of September was to give up online education. So all the students in Hatay are getting their education in a classroom. Last year, we had schools in tents, containers, and on a ship. Now we don't have any classrooms in tents, but schools and containers are still active since students need to be closer to where they live while going to school. We are planning to move those to newly built schools next year. Also, we're not short of teachers. The ministry appointed 5,500 teachers after the earthquake.
geçmiş olduk. Onlar kalktı.
After the earthquakes, many intact schools were repurposed as temporary shelters for survivors, leaving a shortage of learning spaces. The Karadeniz Lifeship Rauf was renovated and transformed into a floating high school to ensure classes went on for hundreds of Hatay students. Named after its late owner, it was developed to provide humanitarian assistance to victims of natural disasters. Docked at Iskenderun port, the ship features classrooms, living quarters, a large cafeteria, and recreational areas. It accommodates several hundred students, teachers, administrators, and crew, functioning like a self-sustaining mini-city. The ship's education coordinator Zeynep Sahin explained how this idea came to life.
Şimdi deprem 6 Şubat felaketinden sonra maalesef
Following the February 6th earthquake, our country had many needs in several areas. After the Süheyla Sultan ship helped a lot in many areas, our team felt the need to support in the area of education here. That's when it was decided to convert the Rauf Bey ship into an education center. We started to prepare our 960 students for the high school and university entrance exams here. We didn't prepare them only academically. The children's mental health was affected as a result of the earthquake, so we wanted to help them as soon as possible. Our psychologists supported us in this regard. We also supported them with their regular academic curriculum. We tried to ensure they felt safe here, and they've been able to feel it eventually. The fact that everything on the ship was stable and strong was an important factor.
psikolojik danışmanlarımız yer aldı.
The floating school is currently allocated to a single high school with a high success rate.
2023-2024 eğitim öğretim yılı.
Since the 2023-2024 academic year, we've had the Osman Ötken High School students on this ship. The school was located in Antakya, but the building and dormitory were destroyed, so the school was moved to this ship. Here we host around 500 students, 50 teachers, and 100 family members. We prioritize the psychological needs of our students and also their academic and social needs.
Eğitim alanlarının sağlanması adına.
In its earlier days, students from other high schools who were also affected by the earthquake could apply to study here. Now some of them have even graduated and reminisce about the positive experiences they had here.
I stopped going to school after the earthquake because I had lost my enthusiasm, because the effects of the disaster sat with us for a long time, and they still do. When I started staying in the container city, we had volunteer teachers there, and I discovered the ship school thanks to them. I stayed for about 3.5 months. The difference from a normal school is that we got to stay here and were able to communicate with our teachers anytime we needed. I was very encouraged by their smiling faces and support.
Now it's the next generation that's getting this much-needed support. The school is heavily involved in daily routines and career planning. I asked Sahin what the school board's top priorities were apart from education.
Başarıyı destekleyen barınma.
In addition to their academics, we focus a lot on our students' social needs. Food is one of them. We have monthly lists according to their ages. The eggs and milk they consume are always very fresh. What they eat and drink is very important to us. We have a professional kitchen staff. They have their breakfast and one snack. With the support of the Union of Chambers and Commodity Exchanges of Türkiye, we serve the students lunch and dinner at the tent.
Hazırlanan ve ekibimizin hazırladığı kahvaltı, akşam atıştırmalığı gemide tüketiyor öğrencilerimiz.
And this comprehensive approach seems to be paying off.
Zeynep, there have been reports on the success stories of some of the students in Hatay after the earthquake. Have there been any proud moments for this initiative?
Destekleme, yetiştirme kurs merkezi sonrası.
Our students did extremely well at the high school and university entrance exams. It is rewarding to see our students embark on their journeys to the future and into the world of work. When we see them moving on, we feel proud. Right now, as of 2025, we have a promising group of students with us.
Her lise, her üniversite bizim için çok değerli.
So this is a temporary facility, but is there any chance it could become a long-term thing, even a permanent thing? If not, when the students leave, when the school is closed, what could be the future plans for this ship?
6 Şubat sonrası içinde bulunduğumuz.
Based on the needs identified after the February 6th earthquake, we decided to transform the Rauf Bey ship into a school ship. We started preparing our students for exams. We saw that the schools were in better shape than the ones in Antakya, so we decided to host the Osman Ötken Anatolian High School. We continue to support our students in their academic pursuits. We promised to do so in the beginning, and we're still doing it. We'll keep supporting these students until they no longer need it. After that, like the Süheyla ship, the Rauf Bey ship will be taken to the shipyard for maintenance and to be used if needed, which I hope not.
İhtiyaç ne kadar sürerse?
Just like this ship school, Hatay was forced to come up with many drastic solutions after the twin earthquakes. And now, as more schools reopen, returning to pre-earthquake levels is just around the corner. As for housing and restoration projects, the remaining ones are expected to be completed during this year. Mentally, the scars of the twin quakes won't fade away anytime soon. But physically, Hatay is rising up from that tragic day in hopes of building a brighter future. That's all for this special edition of Strait Talk. I'm Zeynep Gökçe from Hatay. I'll see you next time.